Anyway, I have a new job at the Washington Post. It was created just a few months ago, where I manage our collaborative investigations with other news organizations. I think it's the best job in journalism. What I do is I get to make new friends and do awesome stories with them. So if you've got a great idea, come find me or email me or whatever, because we're open for business. We like working with other people. And here we have, I believe we're going to have a fourth panelist up on the screen momentarily, but I'm going to let each of our folks here introduce themselves in just a moment. And we'll leave 20 minutes or so at the end for questions. So if you have a great question, just hang on and we'll get to you. I'll start with Paul.
Thank you very much. My name's Paul Myers. I am a journalist at BBC's data and analysis team. I'm still jet lagged after 2 days, remarkably. I'd like to thank IPI for inviting me and David Jordan for facilitating it. At this strange day. Yeah, nothing going on in London at the moment, so quiet news day, you know. I'm leaving it all to my colleagues back in London to handle this immense story that's going on there. But thank you for sticking around, and I'll be talking today about open source intelligence and showing you a couple of examples.
Hello. Hello, I'm Anna Babinets. I'm from Ukraine. I'm representing here Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. I'm OCCRP editor in Ukraine and also investigative media Slidstvo.info from Ukraine. We are investigators, but because of war, we a little bit transforming, and now we mostly work with OSINT, we work with identifying Russian soldiers, and I will tell about our project we just released a couple months ago, how it works, because it's for us it's everyday work to identify Russian militaries, and we put all of them together, and I will tell about this example how we worked, and I hope I will get for me and for my media new information from such good journalists who are here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rinat Tuhvatshin. I am from Kyrgyz Republic. It's in Central Asia. I'm co-founder of Kloop Media. It is news and investigative website and also software development NGO. And today I'm going to be talking how we do crowdsourcing.
Thank you, everybody. You know, when I started in this business back in another century, they handed me a notebook and a pen, and I had a computer on my desk that looked like it was straight out of the Jetsons, and I had a phone on my desk. So it wasn't until my fourth newspaper, the Washington Post, that I actually got a cell phone, and that was a big revolution at the time. And there was Sewell Chan, who's sitting there, was on the city desk with me back in this time, and they handed these things out very sparingly, and I was covering the mayor. I'm like, if the mayor tries to call me, like, I need to be able to answer the phone. And so, lo and behold, I got my first cell phone. And of course, the world has just continued to change head over heels faster and faster. I spent about a decade covering technology and cybersecurity and misinformation and disinformation, and I've come to really appreciate the amazing power of what people who are more technically skilled than I am can do. The kind of journalism they can do, the kind of truths they can find that were just completely not available to us a generation ago. So in any case, I think each of our folks here want to do a brief presentation on the amazing work they're doing. So why don't we start with Paul? You want to take the screen?
The monitor for, the browser first of all.
Okay. Just give me a second. Then you got the browser. And then here you have your...
Every one of us needs an internet browser. We cannot live without it or function efficiently.
I didn't have email when I started. It's amazing. Nor a browser.
We don't want to continue this fashion, right? Do you?
Yeah, maybe not. Paul, are you close, or should we do?
I am close. Carry on talking. Don't mind me.
Okay, we'll make some more jokes about the early days.
I just wanted to make a little announcement. Here we heard a lot about fighting against disinformation, troll farms, and so on. but we didn't hear, I think, one very important thing. We heard that Russia supports them a lot, but also you should know that Ukraine now is fighting Russia, and if it wins, if Russia disintegrates, we are going to have much less disinformation and troll farms. So support Ukraine in any way you can, in your personal or professional capacity. Donate to Armed Forces of Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you.
Oh, well, sorry about the delay, folks. I wanted to talk to you about OSINT. OSINT is open source intelligence. And it's something that I've been working with for, well, the last 26 years or so. But it now seems to have come into its own, especially with reporting the war that's raging at the moment. There are actually several disciplines of intelligence gathering. Human intelligence, or HUMINT, I guess that's pronounced. SIGINT, signals intelligence. SOCMINT, does anyone know what SOCMINT is? No. Social media intelligence. IMINT, FININT, FININT is financial intelligence. MASINT, which is measures and signals intelligence. This is an example of a MASINT story I was working on. I was going to say late, but he's still alive. Our former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was accused of hosting illegal parties during the lockdown in the UK. And photos emerged, and my boss asked me to see if Boris was socially distanced from the people sitting next to him. And how could we tell? Well, if I knew how wide doorways were in number 10 Downing Street, where the Prime Minister operates from, then I'd know exactly how far he was from that woman, but I didn't have that luxury. All I had really that could measure the distance really in terms of reference was this red box here and Boris's arm. So how long is Boris's arm? I don't know. I never measured it.
Is that not on Wikipedia? You can't just look that up.
It probably is. It's probably got its own page in Wikipedia. But Boris Johnson's height is 1.75 m, and height is directly proportionate to arm span, and so Boris's arm is 73 centimeters. I know that because I'm also 1.75 meters. And I just got a tape measure out and measured my own arm. So, you know, he was sort of less than a meter away from the people. But trouble is, he wasn't, because he was pointing actually in a different direction. His hand holding that glass was not directly on top of this person's head. So the angle is wrong. And so my measurements are wrong. So I started looking at the red box. And these red boxes are a standard size. They're where the ministers in the UK, the lawmakers, keep their papers. And I found one for sale on eBay. And so I kind of like measured it and doubled the measurement, and like that came to over a meter. But then there's another problem, because that's sat up on a chair next to the desk, and it's not on the floor next to the other person. So again, it's problematic. So nobody said this work was easy. Anyway, getting on to OSINT, open source intelligence, Wikipedia says that this is the collection and analysis of data gathered from open and publicly available sources to produce actionable intelligence. Effectively, it can be anything that you can find without having to hack into something to get that information, or break into somebody's house to steal what's in their desk or whatever. It can be social media posts, database content, contact details. Literally, it could be a packet of potato chips. And I'm not lying. Before I came out, there was a story on the radio about how somebody had noticed that the use-by date on British potato chips always falls on a Monday, and wanted to know why. And I, you know, checked it out, and it's true. You go to England, buy some potato chips, the sell-by date is a Monday. So anything could be actionable intelligence. Just depends what the story is that you're working on. For example, a lot of people used to write off Instagram in the same way that they're writing off TikTok. Now, but you know, as I said, anything could be. This is, for example, the son of Mexican drug what would you say, official? No, not drug official. Drug lord, maybe, I don't know, El Chapo. But, you know, like, okay, he's probably just posting memes, but it might be interesting to see where he is when he's posting those and who is clicking like on them. It doesn't matter, you know, that the person that you're you know, investigating is just posting a video of themselves dancing on TikTok. It might matter where they're dancing and who they're associated with. So anything can be intelligence. Let me look at a couple of examples, because I think new technology is really, really affecting the way that we do our OSINT work. For example, how many people here are doing reverse image searching? Okay, reverse image searching, where you upload a photograph and it will tell you where else that photograph exists on the internet. And it's been around for a couple of years now, really, really useful in identifying perhaps where a photograph was taken or who's in the photograph. You might have come across a photograph and you don't know who it is or where it was or when it was taken. By uploading it to Google, Google will find it. But that only works for photos that exist on the net. What if you wanted to identify somebody in a video and there were no photographs of them on the net? What could you do? Well, one newer-ish thing that we're working with at the moment is called biometric facial recognition. Rather than finding a photograph of a person elsewhere on the internet, it will measure your eyes, ears, nose and mouth, how close they are to each other, and find the same face on the internet. Let me show you an example. First of all, this is Pim Eyes. Now, if I look through my camera, this is me the other day waving, I can take a photo of myself and it will measure my rather unique face and find pictures of people with the same face online. And there you can see various pictures of me that are online, not the same as my webcam obviously, but they weren't looking at the photo, they were looking at the facial features. And then I can click on it, see the full photograph and go to the website where that was taken from. So how can I use this in an investigation? This was an incident in Ukraine, and this was a person that was at the incident, and I wanted to find out who he was. In fact, there are a couple of videos with this guy. So I did a screen grab of his face and uploaded it to Pim Eyes. And Pim Eyes matched the facial features to other photos that were exactly the same. So I found other people that were covering the same story, but then it also found earlier photos of the same guy, different kind of beard, but it suggested that they were him, and I found out that he was a bodyguard to the former Georgian president. So I found a little bit more information about him that way. And I got a name, but I wanted to verify that it was the same person. So I found social media accounts related to that person. I needed to double check before, you know, we do anything. And this is not the only check before we run a story, but I thought I'd do a comparison between the person we thought it was and the person in the video. So I'm using MX Face here, which allows you to compare two faces. So this is the person at the scene of that incident in Ukraine. This is the alleged social... Oh, no, this is me. Let's compare him with me, first of all, on a beach somewhere nice. And no, it says it's not me. 0% confidence that it's me, which is quite right. So instead, let's get this social media picture that I thought was him. Wasn't quite sure, but it's saying 99.98% that it is the same person. It's measured the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. So I think that you know, that was really really cool. Have I got any other videos to show you? This one's something I'm working on at the moment. Instead of verifying a face, this is verifying a location of an incident. I took these screen grabs from a video I found on the net, and I took two because I wanted to get the entire horizon here, and the horizon wasn't in one photo on its own. You know, you had to, the camera panned across. So I took two different screen grabs, put them into Photoshop, made one of the layers a little bit transparent so I could see the other layer behind it, so that I got it in the right position. Once I got it in the right position, then I had an entire horizon, basically. And I was also told a location where this particular incident happened, and I wanted to double check whether it was in that location. So, oh, there's me twiddling with the angles. Because a camera filming across is not going to be like on a tripod all the time. This was a soldier holding a gun in one hand and a phone in the other and, you know, going across. But I uploaded the photograph. I looked at the location where I was told this was in a site called Peak Visor, which matches landscape to locations. And I could see here that there was an area there in between these two hills at this location. What I thought I'd do is I'd use that particular point as a reference point and upload my panorama of that scene, because I noticed there was something pretty similar there. But it might just look like it. How can I prove that this is the location? Peak Visor allows you to kind of pull it in and test it, really. And so there I am, playing around, trying to match the scenery to the location, and I found a really, really good fit. Like facial recognition, biometric facial recognition, we do not totally rely on this as proof. You know, we do not run stories if we really cannot prove them. So it just forms part of the jigsaw puzzle of verification that we run. Okay. And we use new tools as they come and go, and we respond to old tools disappearing. There are some tools that I used to use that I can't use now because of, you know, noble concerns about privacy. However, I tried to get into the Baltimore Sun the other day from my office in the UK, couldn't get in, because 4.5 years after the introduction of European privacy law, the lawyers still haven't sorted out how to give access to their website to Europeans. Of course, I used a VPN. You know, I had to pretend to be in America. The other thing I find that I cannot look up who owns a website anymore, which is, again, noble to try and protect privacy of website owners, but it means that scammers and extremists can hide behind a cloak of anonymity. We cannot see a fake site from a real site. And so there are problems, but there are also new opportunities. Anyway, I'll give over.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank
that
you.
was incredible. And a little frightening. Anna, are you ready to? Is Milagros on the screen somewhere behind one of these things?
I might have closed down the...
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Let's just introduce her and then we can...
What is that? Okay.
What's that? Well, I just wanted to introduce herself.
Okay.
We seem to be struggling.
Perfecto.
Any luck? Yep.
Okay, Milagros, can you switch on your microphone, please, to check?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, we can see her.
We can't see her on the big screen. Hello, Milagros. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
oh, there
you,
we
thank
go.
you. Hello,
Okay.
everybody.
Could you just
Thank
introduce
you.
yourself for a moment, and then we'll...
Yes, of course. Well, I am Milagros Salazar. I am a journalist from Peru. I am the director of Convoca. It's a media outlet of investigative journalism and data analysis based in Lima. I would like to share with you an experience working with Convoca Deep Data. Is a platform. I don't know if I can share with you my presentation. Is possible? Yeah?
Sure, go ahead.
Here?
Thank you.
Please. Thank you.
Co-host.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yes. All right.
Okay. Yes. Well, The 2 years ago, we create this platform that is the most complete data analysis platform on the extractive industries in Peru. And why is a data analysis platform relevant to extractive industry in Peru, in Latin America? Well, mining and oil industry play a main role in Peru and Latin America, generating a great impact on the lives of the population of the Andes and the Amazon. To know who is who in these activities is to know how power works. And despite of we know that there is more and more abundant information about these activities, but this information is not always clear, is not always integrated. It is usually scattered. Faced with this chaos of scattered information, we have created this platform for citizens, for journalists, for researchers. For that, in order to organize this information, we processed more than 2 million data and analyzed information that dated back 100 years and indicators that measure, for instance, the level of non-compliance with environmental and labor regulation in the last 15 years. And how do we access to this information and then analyze it? Well, it was a hard work because we need to build different databases. Our team filed 50 public information requests from governmental entities, scraped government website using tools, and analyze hundreds and hundreds of documents. Also, was so important, create a traffic light that identifies more than 200 large oil and mining companies based on the severity of environmental and labor law violations, highly, frequently, moderately, or little infringing. Well, for that, we built a strong methodology, was established based on documents, patterns, interviews to expert authorities, and also using statistical methods. We published the process of databases with the objective of transparency. And what was possible after hard work? Well, our reporters at Convoca published a strong and reliable investigation using these databases in a quick way, given the quality, quantity, and access of the information. Non-governmental institutions and organizations of the civil society in Peru have contacted with us, seeking to establish alliance and partnerships. These dynamics are essential to both secure the sustainable on the project in long term. We were what were our challenges. About challenges, I can share that was so hard collect a lot of information for various sources and processing thousands of documents in different formats. Another challenge was to build the traffic light that identifies large oil and mining companies. The permanent update of the databases, find ways to automate some process with the help of developers. And what we learned from this project? Well, data can not only be used as a source for immediate for publications but also that data can be integrated with other databases to generate open data platforms such as Convoca Deep Data. Establishing a strong section of methodology and understanding data involves interviewing human sources and experts from different fields and going over hundreds of official documents. Data-driven projects need to be collaborative and interdisciplinary. Well, this is some ideas that I want to share with you. Well, thank you for this time and for this opportunity.
Thank you, Milagros. Anna, do you want to come back up and do your presentation? Thanks.
Like real presentation. So how to... Okay, hello again. I will not tell about like tools, like how to do it hand by hand. I will tell mostly about how we used OCCRP every day as investigative journalists during the war, because now when we can't produce like real classic investigations because of many things in our country, OCCRP and identifying of especially Russian militaries, it's our main work now in Ukraine, that what we do as investigative center. Before the war, our media Slitstvo.info, we exist for more than 10 years, and we worked with offshores, with complicated financial schemes, with corrupted officials, with big crimes. But when war started, we completely changed. We can't do classic investigations anymore. And before the war, when we were preparing as media, we asked our partners from OCCRP first, then partners from France from Bellingcat to give us the training about the modern tools of OCCRP. And I'm very happy that all my reporters had this, because from that moment when war started, it's everyday tools we work with. And I will tell about database. We collected all our stories and we collected all identified Russian militaries, and we released recently. So in the beginning of the war, there are some officials, especially Ukrainian intelligence, they published lists of Russians who are Russian militaries who are, according to their information, participate in the war against Ukraine. They published that list. It's like 700, 800 people, and we in our media decided to check them, to fact check if that any proofs that people really in Ukraine and they really soldiers. And what we did, we just checked all these people through social networks using all this tool, all these face identifications, all these geolocation things. And we, in the beginning, like first 2 months, we produced stories about that. And when we figure out that we already have like hundreds of identified people who are really in Ukraine, because in the beginning, all these young Russian soldiers published pictures in their social networks from Ukraine. Of course, they are young and they don't know anything about OCCRP, but our journalists they identified that people, especially kind of funny stories we published about Kadyrov people, because they tried to look very dangerous, but when our journalists were analyzing videos they published in their Telegram channels or Instagram, we found out that they're just TikTok soldiers. They are doing like, you know this, yeah? Yeah, because they are just pretending they are doing performances for video, and when our journalists found out on video that it's the same place and they pretend it's different and they just shoot somewhere, but it's already a pretty quiet area in Mariupol at that moment. So they just pretending, and we figure out, and we published a lot of stories about Kadyrov people, and we identified his people in Ukraine as well. But in one moment we realized that, of course, we are journalists, we publish stories. We tell the stories about Russian militaries, Russian officers, Kadyrov people. We tell what exactly they do in Ukraine. We tried to find proofs, evidences that they're really in Ukraine, what exactly they do. But then we figure out that it's a lot of people, and important for us that all proofs we collected will be presented in cards, in Ukrainian cards, in international cards. And for us, it's we use these tools and we collect all this information. One of reasons for us, except telling the stories as media, we want that all our proofs will be used as proofs in cards. And we created the database I would like to show. So this is the biggest database of Russians which exist in Ukraine, and it's almost 150,000 Russians here. So how it works? So there is the list of Russians obtained by officials, and we obtained some lists from our sources. Some of them were published by trustful Ukrainian NGOs, and it's possible to find people here. So, for example, if we put involved, identified, suspect, we can see the list of people who already identified and who already, so we have proof that they are in Ukrainian war. For example, this guy, this guy. So this is the profile of that person. We have proof that he involved. We put the picture and then links to information. We can see journalistic investigations. This is our story about the guy, so with proofs, with his pictures, with everything. And another proofs, this is iStory's story about this guy as well. And this is, it's another story. So what is the idea of these databases? We just found all the lists published by officials. We fact-checked them, and we used all OSINT tools we can use now, or the modern OSINT tools, just for proving that people were in Ukraine, and not only were in Ukraine, what exactly they did. Every day my journalists going around Ukraine, around Kyiv region, around other region, and they talk to people, and they come and they figure out what exactly Russian units stayed in what exactly village and what exactly they do. So for us, very important to prove that every person who appeared in this, our database, in our stories, that it will be not like just some Russians came. I understand that it's a lot of work. It's like, in the end, we want to identify all 150,000 people. I understand maybe it will never happen, but our idea to identify as many people as possible, because we know that when cards starting again against Russia, how it was with Syria, especially international cards. No one wants to call Russians criminals. So it will be very hard for Ukraine when we will win this war. Of course, we will. in 1 month, in 1 year, it doesn't matter, we will win. It will be very hard process for us as for country to prove that Russians were in Ukraine. You know, they always try to say that it was not the Russian militaries. So for us, it's very important to collect all the information, to put all of them in one place. And we know that Ukrainian officials use this database because it's the biggest and the most full database which exists now in Ukraine. And it's also a possibility for people to send us messages about connection of that soldier, this person, to the war. So, and what we sometimes really people send us proofs, lists, or something from some village or from some town, and we work with this as journalists. So yeah, and I think that before we published, Ukrainian official investigators, Ukrainian prosecutors asked our journalists to train them with OCCRP. Because when the war started, they figured out that they never used, Ukrainian officials never used these tools. They never worked with OCCRP tools. They never worked with geolocation, all this stuff. But it's new kind of crimes for them. And we had discussion in our media. We were talking, should we help official investigators, because usually we work absolutely on different sides. But then we decided that if we can share our knowledge with them, just knowledge, if it will help in the future, we can do it. So our journalists gave some trainings, and I hope now our officials, prosecutors works better. There are a lot of work for prosecutors, for other investigators, official investigators in Ukraine with proving war crimes. And when in April prosecutors officially suspected first 10 Russian soldiers with their crimes they committed in Ukraine, 7 of them was identified by our journalists. Because in the beginning they absolutely didn't know how to do this. And now I hope they know how to do this, and it's helpful, and we collect all identified soldiers done by our media. We collect in one place, and I think it's first time in our history and history of our organization and for Ukrainian journalists when we work with OCCRP every day. And we see that more and more new tools, and you showed now too. And so I hope that it's first time when the war is going on in the times when everyone might be identified, because there are a lot of tools for identifying people. And I hope that every criminal, every Russian soldiers who committed crime in Ukraine will be identified, fined, and in the end will be sentenced for their crime. And as journalists, we do everything for that. And I hope our work will have results. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. That is really impressive work. My goodness. Rinat.
Thank you. Excuse me. So, Kloop is a media that is based in Kyrgyzstan or Kyrgyz Republic. It's not Kyrgyzstan, as many may think. It's a country in Central Asia. It used to be part of the Soviet Union, so we don't like Russia as well. But you should understand one thing that you should understand about Kyrgyzstan, that it is the most democratic country in the region. Since 19th, when we gained our independence, we had 6 different presidents, almost like United States. But one difference with United States is that one of our presidents was a woman. Yeah. So, of course, it is incredibly important for our country to monitor elections, because it's, I think, good election monitoring is a basis of electoral democracy, of course. But we never wanted to do that, actually. And in 2020, we partnered with Danish monitoring group Silba that wanted to send about 100 foreign election monitors to Kyrgyzstan, and we would provide, we would call our audience to provide some fixers and translators, and then we would use their data, their report for covering elections. But of course, you know, this wonderful 2020 when nobody could go anywhere. And we realized that our monitors, our Danish monitors, are not coming to Kyrgyzstan. And later, during the summer, and elections were in autumn, we realized that no foreign monitors, election monitors, are coming to Kyrgyzstan. And then we realized that most prominent election monitoring groups, we suspected that they were associated with the government. And later, our suspicions proved true. So we realized that it's our duty as citizens and as journalists now to actually go and monitor elections. So before we did mostly news journalism and investigative journalism and data journalism. We won Sigma Award in 2021. We received Tom Renner Award, American one, together with OCCRP and Azatik for our investigations. But now we had entirely new challenge in front of us. We needed to organize huge amount of observers to observe election. And since, fortunately, we also do a lot of data journalism and a lot of software development for journalism, we decided to create our own platform. So we were able to gather about 200 observers, and we monitored elections, and we realized that there were a lot of vote buying. Like literally people came out of the polling stations and were given money. And we filmed it, and we covered it in real time. And in a way, not fully, but to some part, due to our reporting, public unrest and rallies started. And government was overthrown. It resigned, but under pressure from the street. And new guy who just came out of prison basically became like head of the country. And he said that he wanted to change constitution. The Central Electoral Commission nullified elections that we monitored, so we needed to have another parliament elections. Since president resigned, we needed to have another presidential elections. And this new guy, Sadir Japarov, he wanted to change constitution, so we needed to have referendum on constitution. But since we're going to have referendum on constitution, we needed to, and presidential and parliamentary elections. So first you have to have separate referendum on constitution, and only after that you could have parliamentary and presidential election. So in 1 year, 2021, we had a referendum on constitution, presidential elections, and parliamentary elections, all 3 months apart. And again, no foreign observers were coming. And we kind of liked what we did. So we decided to upscale our efforts, and we wanted to have, I think at the highest point, we had around 3,000 observers observing Kyrgyz elections. And we use them to report in real time. So how we did it? We created our own system that we call GigaTurnip. And in the end, I will tell you why. But basically, any observer could fill, we call them emergency form, when they saw any type of violation. And then they send it to a team of verifiers that were also semi-volunteers. And verifiers checked if this is legit, if it has enough proof, and if it's serious enough. If there was something wrong and it can be corrected, verifiers through our system could return this violation emergency form back to observers so they could correct their mistakes, maybe attach more pictures, videos, additional information, and so on. And if, so basically green rectangles are forms that are filled by people, and blue rectangles are like logic. So where the form goes in under what conditions. So it's like Google Forms created these simple logical blocks. When form was verified, it was forwarded to reporter in a publication form who could write small news snippet, and then it was published on the website. In the same time, if there was video, it was forwarded to video editor who uploaded it to YouTube. But also, it was sent to a lawyer who prepared a complaint to Regional Electoral Commission. And I will tell a little bit more about it. And also, there was a script that generated a complaint that was forwarded back to observer who could submit this complaint to local electoral commission. And I will tell you why, because it seems very reporting style. And then we tried to monitor our lawyers up to the Kyrgyz Supreme Court. So we wanted to monitor not just what our observers do and what our editors do, but we also wanted to make sure that our lawyers also follow all the forms. So we made them to work in the system, and they of course screamed and cried, but we were merciless. And here, very important, this red line, it shows a rectangle where work was done by a script. So basically, complaint that lawyer was sending to Regional Electoral Commission was generated by a very simple script. So you took verified form, and since we basically anticipated what violations we can see, we could generate complaints for the lawyers. And the reason we use so many complaints is because at some point during this crazy year, Central Electoral Commission just stopped answering our journalism queries. And again, during elections, when it matters, when you need to basically cover everything and do all the analysis and data analysis, and basically in 3 days during elections, they're too busy to respond to journalists like in normal way. It's much easier just to freaking sue them, strategic litigation, and then they have to respond to you in court. So the more complaints we filed, the more information we were able to get from the Electoral Commission. Yeah, they hated us, and they banned one of our organizations from monitoring elections. Luckily, we had registered like 3 more in advance. And that's how kind of it looked from the point of view of regular observers, just very simple form. And that's how it basically we publish news in real time. So usually electoral monitoring groups, they monitor election, and then in a couple of days after election, they publish report. We didn't see the point of it, so as soon as we saw verified violation, it was covered, published on our website. And at the peak of our campaigning, we had around 3,000 observers. We saw about 800 violations, but I wanted to show you something beautiful. I really like it. So these are protocols from elections. So since we're like freaking democracy, also kleptocracy, but democracy, protocols from polling stations are supposed to be published on website. And it seems, how can you cheat the system when even protocols with results, handwritten results, they are published on the website? Luckily, we asked our observers to fill another special form that was also in this chain to take picture of the protocol that they saw that was filled after the elections. And we realized that in about 200 cases, in 200 polling stations out of about 1,000 that we monitored, the protocols were different documents. Not just with different numbers, but you see here and here, this is supposed to, so this first protocol, it was uploaded to the government site, and this one is our observers took picture of. And you see that number of people who participated, they are different, but also you can, if you look, you can see that it's just totally different documents. And we realized that we were so lucky that we had so many so many volunteers, because if it was just one journalist who saw this, then they would say, okay, it's one accident. But we actually were able to see that there were like 200 protocols that were completely rewritten and actually exchanged. And this is illegal in Kyrgyzstan, of course. And then we did statistical analysis, and we realized that, and of course, we had to attract also many volunteers, because we had to these forms were extremely long, and we had to analyze literally hundreds and thousands of them. But we did statistical analysis, and we realized that this changing of protocols, it did not give advantage to any of the parties. That's just regional electoral commissions had thought that polling stations filled the protocols in the wrong way. So they kind of tried to clean things up and just exchange protocols. And after our publication, now they send protocols, field protocols via WhatsApp to each other. And then regional electoral commissions, they give feedback to polling stations. And now if they want to correct the protocol, they do it together with observers and so on. But it was really, I was amazed when I saw that so many protocols being exchanged. And for us, as journalists, about 60 or 70% of people who participated as observers, they were outside Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan. And so most of our resources are based inside the capital. And this way, using this system, we were able to attract people in the areas where we didn't have our reporters. But also, you cannot just send an observer to observe elections without training. And again, it was COVID, we could not gather them in our office, and even without COVID, we could not gather 6,000 people. So we did all teaching remotely using the same system. So basically, we were showing them video in the system, in the same forms, and saying, okay, find violation here. And so about 5,300 people at one election sign up, and we were able to choose about 2,000 out of them. Also, we needed to provide some documents to them. So, and of course, they could not come to the office to get the documents. So we needed to issue them remotely. So we used little AI that cut out their faces from the pictures that they provided to us, and we automatically opened a little page on our system for each observer. So they had this QR code on their badge, and anyone could scan QR code to check if this was actually our observer who had this document. Also, we had to create this whole real-time FAQ service. And we also use the same system. So observer filled a form asking a question. Then, and again, this red arrow, we used very simple AI to generate answer. And then our observer could say if he was or she was satisfied with the answer. Actually, most of our observers were women for some reason, rural women. It was very cool. First time I saw them so active in politics in Kyrgyzstan. And if they were not satisfied, then our human moderators received this query as a task, and we were able to answer it. Or if they could not answer it, they elevated it and then created new FAQ question. So everything was done in one system. And so we had this system. It was very fun. But also we did data journalism. And one thing that we really like to do with data journalism, we like to merge databases. So for example, we took procurement database with with millions of procurement data points, procurement contracts, competition, and so on. We took database with all legal entities from Kyrgyzstan. We scraped it, of course, about 100,000 or 200,000, and we combined them together and put them into a graph database. Database that shows connections between nodes, between entities. And we used very simple graph script and said, find all circular patterns of certain form. And we found basically companies that faked competition. Basically, two companies participated in one procurement, in one tender, and they owned or affiliated with one person. And this way you get this like circular pattern. And also later we added tax declarations, and we were able to find relatives of high-ranking officials that participated in procurement. So it was fun. And we actually got shortlisted. One of our data materials won Sigma, and this one was shortlisted for Sigma. But it was like freaking so much work. You know, we had to like scrape databases, combine them, learn freaking graph language, do these queries, like run them for hours on computers, and then we had like 2 materials. It was so sad, but I'm sure every data journalist is familiar with this sadness when you do a lot of work and very little publications. And our results actually we saw like hundreds of tenders that had these ring-like structures. We call them rings of corruption. We saw hundreds of tenders that were related to one official or another. Of course, we took the largest ones. But then we realized, okay, why not to put them in the same system? So we are now asking our, we call this red flags. We find like suspicious things related to procurements, and basically graph database generates red flag, and then it's verified kind of like violation is verified with electors. So we use this election monitoring system to give these hundreds of suspicious procurement deals to our audience to find corruption. It's still in the process because we need to also teach them, but that's what we do. And again, our software is called GigaTurnip. And the reason why it's called GigaTurnip, there is a fairy tale, and it's not Putin, it's turnip. No, in that corner, you see. So once an old man, grandfather, planted a turnip, and it grew to a giant size. And he tried to pull it out of the ground, and he could not do that. So he called his wife, old woman, grandmother, and they started pulling together, and they could not pull the turnip out. And then they called their granddaughter, then their dog, then their cat, then their mouse, and together they started pulling very hard, and they pulled the turnip out of the ground. So that's why we call our system GigaTurnip, where we, human reporters, volunteers, AIs, scripts, can come together and accomplish something big that we would not be able to accomplish alone. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rinat. I will never look at a turnip the same way again. That's transformative. We only have a little more than 10 minutes left. I'm going to ask a question, and then we'll open up the floor. So some of this stuff is really powerful and like maybe a little bit creepy. As someone who covered privacy for quite a while at the Post, I'm curious how you all wrestle with this question of like, are the ethical lines different than they used to be, and are they evolving? And where are these lines? I'm going to start with Paul, because your presentation was the creepiest.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I do pride myself in being the creepiest person in the BBC. We have strong editorial guidelines about what we can and cannot do, and in terms of privacy. If ever we're unsure, we go to our editorial policy department and our legal team. It is a dilemma, I agree, but I used to do this course called Investigative Research on the Net, and one time we had some visitors from the Washington Post came along, and I described to them what I do, and they said, sounds like unethical research on the net, which I fully concluded with. But if you're going to catch bad guys doing bad things and report on them, then sometimes you have to impinge on their privacy a little bit. I do really feel sorry for them, honestly. But it's piecing together things and trying to find people that are torturers or criminals or and sometimes you do need to find personal details on them and use them. So
it makes me wonder if there's not a sort of a sliding scale. Like, does the president of the United States get a different treatment than the man on the street, or even me as a journalist? I would think so.
I think so. Public figures